Hello, Uganda. Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hot Seat on 933 KFM. I welcome you, our listeners, across this beautiful land, the Pearl of Africa. My name is Patrick Kamara. Tonight, we shed a light on Uganda's debt burden. Yes, Uganda's debt burden, it keeps increasing. In fact, we're just sharing informally with a colleague in the studio, and we said, the fact is that if a child is born today, a Ugandan child, will be born with a debt of 2.5 million Uganda shillings. Can you imagine? That even the unborn children of Uganda are already indebted. Each unborn child of Uganda is indebted to more than 2.5 million. This is where we have reached. Uganda's debt burden is beginning to worry, even though some of the political class, including the Ministry of Finance, are saying, you know what, we are still in the good zone. We are not yet bad off. There's nothing to worry about. My guest this evening is the programs manager at the Uganda Debt Network, Christine Biringyiro. Thank you so much for joining us. Good evening, Christine.
Good evening, Patrick, Kamara, and good evening to our listeners. Thank you for having me.
So now, let's get into it, Christine, because I suppose you know this better. When we talk about the debt burden, you sit at the Uganda Debt Network. And sometimes I'm hearing it from other sources. Let me hear it from you. Let the people listening to you hear it from you. How big is our burden? Shock us if you can.
Thank you, Patrick. And yes, I wish I would not shock you, but unfortunately I have to. Just to give an idea, our debt has over the last 5 years grown by 107%. And over the same period, our GDP has grown by 39%. So what that ideally means is that our debt is growing much, much faster than our GDP. If there were two children, debt would be much, much taller than his age.
And GDP is stunted.
So according to the Auditor General, our debt is now at 97 trillion shillings. And that is as at June 2023.
And what is our budget position for the year 2024-25?
So our budget for 2024-25 is 53.3 trillion. That is what we have seen.
But our debt as now is 97 trillion.
Yes,
and these are figures from the Auditor General's office.
Yes.
This is a government employee.
Yes. And what ideally that means is that increasingly we see that debt continues to eat a bigger share of our budget. Of course, that is why we are worried that it has become a burden. In this coming financial year budget, 53.3 trillion, we see debt, of course, will be the winner, as always. And
takes the lion's share.
Takes the lion's share. Interest payment is going to increase from 6 to 7 trillion. That is by 1 trillion. We see debt servicing generally increasing as well. But we see the discretionary resource reducing.
Money available to do development work.
Thank you. That is money that...
So when you talk about debt servicing and interest payment, what are we talking about? Because I don't understand. Are we actually paying the debt? Or what is servicing and what is payment?
Yeah, so ideally servicing is you're paying back the principal, and then the interest payment is strictly the interest. When I come to you, Patrick, and borrow money from you, you give me money, but you give me an interest. You tag an interest to it, 10%, 20%. And so every year, or according to the agreement, you're supposed to pay the interest. That is usually annually. So interest payment is only interest minus the principal on the debt. And so when we see interest payment continue to increase, and then we see the other part of the government business, the social services, especially human capital development, continue to reduce, then we get worried.
Okay, let me introduce another Ugandan. He by nature is a guy who's the most frugal man I know. I wonder what he thinks about the most frugal man I know. Simon Kaheru from Coca-Cola Beverages Africa. Thank you so much for joining us. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, sir.
By the way, I'm saying this, and I am so convinced because I know you for that. How are you today?
Can I assure you, my father would be very, very proud to hear you say that. So
The
thank you.
Ministry of Finance.
Okay, so now the debt burden. I know I've had. I can actually qualify to say Ramadan is my friend because we used to sit in this studio together. Is the BSST, but he seems to say we are in a good zone, and many other people of his ilk. What do you make of this debt burden?
He says we are in a good zone because he is the economist at the helm of running our past, our coffers. Christine, thank you very much for that, for the elaboration you've given, because you're looking at it from the sensibly, should I say, cautious point of view. The fact of the matter is Uganda has been going deeper and deeper into debt for what some business people would say is a good thing, but what most people worry about because of how we don't normally spend our money wisely. I mean, we are not allocating money to more productive things than we are on consumerism. And we are not building the economy in general. Now we are just using broad strokes. We are not building the economy so that it grows. And when you consider, I think it was around 6 years ago that Uganda said we are going to borrow more money to develop infrastructure. The idea was that infrastructure was going to help us make more money. Of course, a lot of it was oil and gas related. Unfortunately, even when you're doing that, if you are doing business, we should have been cutting down on fat and waste and enabling more and more people to produce so that it's easier to pay back that debt or those loans. When you look at it from the point of view of a business person, most successful business people take up loans. That is good debt. What do they do with those loans? If they go out and buy Range Rovers, then they are finished. They've lost everything. If, however, they use those loans to invest in growing the business, then it makes sense because then they'll start to make more money that will enable them to take even more loans to make the business grow even faster. And that's why the richest people in the world are not loan-free.
But if you may pause there, Simon. I have a question. Is this the problem of our technocrats that they go negotiate for loans and then that money is not put to proper use? There's no effective utilization, or they are overruled by the political class?
I don't know who exactly to blame this on. I would definitely blame the technocrats because they're the ones in charge of running the economy. In fact, an IMF report I read, we were circulating last week, said, Christian, the figure you gave was 97 trillion, right? But that report mentioned that there are loans in Parliament now waiting to be approved to the tune of 7 trillion. To the tune of 7 trillion Uganda shillings, waiting to be approved. Who are the people going to approve these loans? Are they economists that we are going to call technocrats? Or are they politicians?
So let me come back here to Christine Biringyiro. Christine, Simon is raising very fundamental. In other words, the debt could actually go to 105 trillion Uganda shillings. And yes, the issue of you have a budget, you are prepared for all this, there's no emergency, there's no catastrophe, and then another, request for supplementary in the range of trillions of shillings. What causes that?
Actually, Patrick, that 97 trillion is what is declared by government. But we believe and we know for a fact that our debt is actually beyond the 100 trillion that you're talking about. Because if we are to compute debt properly as something or that amount that you owe, we see government, for example, omit some obligations from the computation. Talk about domestic arrears at 10 trillion, and that is not computed as part of the debt. So when you get 97 plus
so you guys,
10,
okay, wait a minute. Now we are even living a lie.
Yes.
We are busy deceiving ourselves.
Exactly.
Is that real? Why?
Exactly.
So Simon, now,
Yes.
I think some of these things can just go. Some of us go mad. Simon, that
Yeah.
the domestic area
Yes.
is not computed.
It is
I mean, I'm learning this venue. I thought it was even part of the whole day. Simon, your take.
No.
Yeah, so,
Why are you even laughing, Simon?
but we've been talking about this from time immemorial, and that's what I'm talking about. If you want your economy to grow, and you know you need to borrow money, okay, think about it in terms of, bring it micro. You borrow money, you Patrick. You want your family to thrive. Once you borrow that money, what are you going to use it for? If you go to the nightclub and blow it away, you're finished. If you go with your wife and the two of you blow it away, of course you're still. If you borrow that money and give her 80% because she's the one who's more enterprising, okay, and knows how to make money with that money and even save money and get enough to pay back the interest, allowing you to drink the 20% and take some of the interest, okay, 20% go clubbing, but pay back the other one. So that you can borrow more, so that you can go have business. You know which direction to take, right? This is the question. Now, domestic debt, another very big ticket item, major problem for all of us, especially in the private sector. Why? Because these very same Ugandans who you want to contribute to the economy and make it fair, the ones for whom we are building infrastructure, if we deny them the opportunity to make that money through business by not paying them, because you know government is not the best at paying debt or paying off supply, then we are tying our shoelaces, okay, and failing to run the race.
So, Christine, if I may, in your view, is this because it looks like it's growing every year, and yet to have the managers of our economy, some of the best brains in terms of economists that you can find on this continent. So what happens? How do we find ourselves getting trapped into this?
Yes, so I would want to think that they are somehow influenced or their hands are tied, because some of these, the technical wing, they seem to be, like people that have ideas, that have, but the things that come out when they go out there to negotiate debt on behalf of the country, and then you wonder, because you see the loans, some of the loans that are negotiated for the country, and the loan comes and you do not see the need for it at all by the country. And so one of the things which I think is indiscipline and just,
fiscal indiscipline and then impunity. Because you cannot, if we were to be tough and say, if you commit the country in this manner, I mean, we have the debt sustainability analysis, we do those. We have the debt management frameworks. We have all the legal, the policy guidelines, the frameworks. But we find that we always surpass the thresholds that are put in there as guides. So what have we done for these officials? Who will surpass this? Who will superintend over some of these? Right, we know and we appreciate that right from the HIPIC days, we have seen ourselves continue growing. The highly indebted poor countries.
Yes, when we achieved, forgiveness, we have seen ourselves going, especially towards the non-concessional debt, which is a bit more dangerous, not a bit more, but very dangerous.
That is when we borrow from like China?
Exactly, because their interests are quite high. There's no grant element. Of course, they also bring, with the debt.
But the beauty also, there are no conditions. So
yes, that's the beauty. Go and waste yourself, and then yeah. But why we have moved that way is we see that government has tried to go out there to look for finances to try and patch up, cover the fiscal gap. Yeah.
Okay.
But as we go out there, we see that it's becoming more expensive for government to borrow because the name of government is continuing to, go down. And then that's when government comes to that domestic scene and then tries to crowd out the private sector. While the PS or Ministry of Finance is promising this, we see otherwise in their actions. Domestic borrowing, for example, they have said they are committed to reduce domestic borrowing. But we see that in the next financial year, we are moving to 4 trillion, up from 3 trillion. And so we wonder how the private sector of this country is going
Oh,
to
Uganda,
thrive.
another fine mess, another fine mess. I've been reading a book by a British journalist, I think Jude River, entitled Another Fine Mess. Simon, we're going to take a break and going to come back with you again. And I want you to help and analyze for us because, you know, you are from the East African Business Council. When you look into the region, so Uganda seems to suggest actually the region, much of the other states around us are in bigger trouble. That for us, we are just beginning to take, in terms of acquiring loans, we're taking baby steps. We'll be right back.
933 KFM's Hot Seat. Hot Seat. Hear the real story behind the story. Coming right at you. Only on 933 KFM.
Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Kamara, and tonight we are discussing Uganda's debt burden. My guest in the studio, I have Biringyiro, Programs Manager at Uganda Debt Network, and we're joined online by Simon Kaheru from Coca-Cola Beverages Africa. Simon, before we took a break, I just wanted you at least to use your knowledge of the East African Business Council. Why our leaders seem to be in the comfort zone, especially when they make a comparison of how Uganda's economy and debt is and where it stands when you compare it with the region?
I wouldn't say that they're in a comfort zone, Patrick. I mean, sometimes poor decision making is as a result of not knowing what lies ahead or not thinking bigger than where you are. One of the things that frustrates us all the time around the situation is how much potential Uganda as a country has, or East Africa as a region, if we talk regional. When we look around the region, last year, from the beginning of last year, Kenya was the most worrying country because of how the economy there had sunk to lows that had not seen before for years. And they've only just come up by, issuing, going for that Eurobond that, as I stand there, fortunately, just a little bit. Don't ask me to explain it in further detail when you have Christian in the studio there. But Kenya is still not as productive as we are when it comes to the things that will always make you money. Start with food. We don't have those resources. We have that, low-hanging fruit. But we cannot process our food. Kenya has that capability. We are not opening up the market outside of East Africa that will give us that money that we need so that we don't even have to borrow money, let's say, again, broad stroke. And we are not putting together everything we've got so that we can take it out there, whether through AFCFTA treaties or all the others that exist that are open for us as African countries to supply to. Instead, what are we doing? We are still importing in a very big way. We are still spending public money, taxpayer money, on things that do not in any way make sense to us as Africans. One of the contracts that has caused, I'm not going to give the details of that specific contract, but caused problems in Kenya, is a contract that involves a foreign supplier taking vast amounts of the much needed foreign exchange out of Kenya to go and provide a solution that can be provided in Kenya. We have the same contract in Uganda. We have similar contracts running in Tanzania. Why is this happening? Again, because people are narrow-minded, the people in charge. They are not thinking about what they need to do for the economy to grow so that our children, and we keep talking about the future generation, can benefit and thrive. Instead, they're trying to, drive Range Rovers, buy apartments, and go on foreign travel holidays. It doesn't look good, but it's very, very short term, extremely short term.
Okay, having made that kind of submission, Christine, I wonder what you make of that. The lifestyle of the people managing the economy is at another level. They are living in a different world. The best of the cars you can find, the fuel guzzlers, and some people even can afford to build palaces within and outside the borders of our country. But is that really the issue? Or the issue is it corruption? Or maybe even these loans are negotiated with the people having their own interests. Like earlier you said, sometimes we look for a loan and negotiate for it when we actually don't need it. So is that our problem? Or the issue is that we lack effective utilization of the money? Because if you got the money and invested it right, we would hope that you can get a return on that investment?
Yeah. So Patrick, I also sometimes do get concerned, but this continues to increase. We see some of our leaders living large, even when our economy seems to be on the downward one. Like you said, we do acquire loans. We see that we have most times acquired loans when we are not ready, and this continues. We do not have feasibility studies. We have not even prepared the counterpart funding, and then we acquire a loan. Then when it reaches...
that happens a lot, and I'm wondering, if you have burnt your fingers once, why do you have to burn your fingers again? For example, one thing I've seen is, especially in the road construction, there was a case here, I think, of the flyover, the clock tower flyover. And then at one point, the contractor could not move. Why? Because he didn't have a right of way. Why? Because some people to be compensated had not been compensated. And it was reported that that UNRWA was losing, or is it to UNRWA, the contractor, 200 million per day, because of having the equipment there, not doing some work. Why? Because the government has no right of way. And I'm wondering, why do you go right ahead to get that loan, and yet you have not even acquired the right of way?
Yeah, Patrick. And beyond that, just know some of this money, the loan, is not fully disbursed. So there's a percentage that is disbursed, and then upon completion or upon providing counterpart funding, then the rest of the debt will be disbursed by the lender. But for as long as you're not ready and the loan is still there, you're paying.
You're paying
for
the
them
interest
to keep,
for the money that's not being used and utilized.
Exactly. We have seen projects that have come to completion when they have disbursed by maybe 10%.
Okay, let me take this back to Simon Kaheru. Simon, sometimes we do something and you think, okay, why can't we learn our lessons the hard way? Because, that would be the most painful. You learn the hard way, don't do it again.
Yes, but Patrick, like I said, there are people who don't want to learn. Why? Because of the interest that they serve. Look, last year here we had a very entertaining story about an attempted a loan application through a commercial bank. Do you remember that story? An East African commercial bank that was purporting to be in the right position to lend Uganda, you and I, money. At what rate? It took the intervention of His Excellency, the President, actually said, what are you doing? Do you remember that? There are certain things that will, we call it begging belief, but they will continue happening, provided people are not patriotic, provided people do not care enough about their country to do the right thing. And until we have the right people in control of these things, people will keep running. That's a matter of fact.
Yeah, I can imagine you talked about until you have the right people. But let me ask now, like Christine has put it, and the figures are showing that the debt is growing every year. So have we reached the road of no return? Simon?
I don't think we've reached the point of no return, and that's why that's when you mentioned Ramadan. Ramadan is one of the men who needs to be on this program every week explaining to Uganda what he's going to do to make things better, him and his team. It's not that he doesn't have a plan, no. We know where some of these challenges are. But we need to keep reminding the government, please, try and spend as much money as possible on production, try and avoid waste, rein in the people who are wasting this money, because that's what a business will do. When a business is in the doldrums, the first thing you do is, let's optimize costs.
Okay.
Let's optimize production.
Okay, I understand, Simon, there's something that is awaiting you, and for that matter, you can give us your parting shot, and before we take a break, after the break, we shall be joined by Dr. Dr. Aisha Kasolo. So your parting shot on this issue.
My parting shot, I think everybody right now needs to focus on the national budget. I believe it's being discussed in cabinet and will soon be going to parliament. Please, everybody prepare to go to parliament to respond to the proposals put forward by our government, because this is the role that you're supposed to play. You can't sit back and lament.
All right. Simon Kaheru there, Simon from Coca-Cola Beverages Africa. Thank you so much. Kwaherian for you, Simon. Let me now back with you, Christine, in the studio. He's just saying that everybody should go to our civic duty, know the budget. Sometimes Ugandans, do they care? in your view? Looks like they don't.
Yeah, sometimes Ugandans have decided to be apathetic. One, because they do not actually have a true picture of our level of indebtedness. And that is because, one, it is probably not broken down for them by the technical wing in government. But we have tried as civil society. But when you approach them, sometimes they show they do not have much interest, and they have, tried to show that they are not linked at all. They do not seem to see the link between themselves and the debt that we are shouldering as a country and indeed as taxpayers. But Patrick, my belief and my take on this whole debt thing and saga is that unless we deal with the corruption that we have in this country, we might not be able to properly manage this debt, even when we are trying to, do more revenue mobilization. We are trying to rationalize so that we can save, some money. I see that for as long as you keep fetching water and pouring in a leaking bucket or pot, then you'll not be solving much.
All right. Christine Biringyiro, hold on to your point because we're going to take a break. When we come back, we shall be joined online by the Honorable Henry Musasizi, Minister of Finance in State and Minister of State for Finance in charge of general duties. He will be here. Probably he can add value and maybe also be able to answer some of the questions that we have. We'll be right back.
KFM.
933.
Hottest debate on all relevant topics live on KFM's Hot Seat tonight. KFM's Hot Seat covers all the relevant topics every weekday 7 to 8 p.m.
Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guest in the studio is Christine Biringyiro, Programs Manager at the Uganda Debt Network. Earlier we heard from Simon Kaheru from Coca-Cola Beverages Africa, and we are now joined online by the Honorable Henry Musasizi, Minister of Finance and State for General Duties and Member of Parliament representing Rwanda County East. Thank you so much for joining us, Honorable Musasizi. Good evening, sir.
Thank you so much, and good evening to all the listeners of KFM.
We are very happy that you have honored our invitation to be online and participate in this discussion because as Minister of State for General Duties, and by the way, I should also say congratulations for staying on the cabinet. It's a big deal, and so we wish you the best as you endeavor to serve our country.
Thank you.
Now, the debt in Uganda, for those who understand this issue better, are saying the debt is increasing, it is becoming a burden, it's worrisome. You are a Minister of State in charge of general duties. What do you make of this skyrocketing debt that keeps increasing every year?
Thank you so much, Patrick. Yes, it is true. In the recent past, we have witnessed a sharp rise in our debt numbers on account of largely of what happened during COVID. We had to do everything possible to mitigate the effects of COVID, and as a result of that, we had to acquire debt which was not only big but also expensive. This has posed a risk to us, but that does not mean that we are in a very bad situation.
Honorable Musasizi, when you have a budget, for example, like this year of around 53 trillion Uganda shillings, but on top of that you have 97, and I'm being very modest, 97 trillion as a debt, because it is more than that if you added a domestic acquired debt. It is more than 97 trillion. Why doesn't that
No. Actually, we want to put those figures right. The official figure of debt is 86.7. But when we add domestic arrears and domestic debt, that's when we get to the figure of 97 to be to be exact. So you can now ask your question.
Okay. Even then, that doesn't even make it better still, because when you have a debt burden of 97 trillion, and for example, now you have a budget of around 53 trillion, and when you look at that, how budget is going to be, the lion's share or the biggest chunk of that money is going for debt servicing. That doesn't look good, does it?
I think what needs to worry you and the public is the ever-growing interest payment, the interest cost. Like now, this financial year, the budget which we shall be presenting in Parliament on Thursday, it has got an interest rise from 6,000 from 6 trillion to now 8 trillion. That is a difference of 2 trillion arising from interest rate payment. So that should be the major area of worry, and that's why we are saying this it's risky. But the question now, I think, which you are about to ask, let me ask it myself. What do we do? Hello?
Yes, what do you do?
Patrick, what do we do to mitigate this situation? You have seen us slow down on doing certain things. We are saying, can we now look at the areas which can bring growth in the economy? Meaning that if we are to borrow, we must borrow for specific areas. We no longer want to borrow for any purpose. There must be specific areas of investment of where our money is going, which we must borrow for. Other things we shall have to wait, because we cannot continue doing things. We cannot continue acquiring debt as if things are normal.
Okay, let me bring it back here. Or maybe you need to hear from we have the programs manager at the Uganda Debt Network. Christine Biringyiro is in the studio. We have been ordered to have the minister online with us, and at least earlier he has explained that the debt burden because of the COVID problems, and we find ourselves where we are, and they now want to be as frugal as possible moving forward. Your take, Christine.
Yeah, thank you. I want to note, and I'm sure the Honourable Minister must have come across this information from the URA about the number of taxpayers by the income group that has been recently published. And it says the income band between from 100 billion shillings and above, we have seen a reduction in these taxpayers from 125 in 2020 to only 5 in 2020 to 23. And likewise, the ones that fall in the bracket of, in other words, those who have been paying
to that kind of level.
Yes. So from 50 billion to 100 billion, we have seen them reduce from 130 to 3.
Oh, wait a minute.
And so, yes.
I think the Honourable Minister, you want to respond to that, because if that's the trend where people, serious taxpayers, are dwindling in such a huge numbers, then there's a bigger cause for worry.
Yeah, so I wanted to find out from the minister, is he worried or concerned about our ability then to be able to collect the revenues that are going to be able to both sustain the economy through repayment of the debt or debt servicing, as well as supporting our private sector?
I think you need to squarely look at this. The number of taxpayers could be going down, which I needed to check. But we, for instance, our projection for, let me use now 21 to 22 financial year. Our projection was 25.5 trillion. And we managed to exceed it by 40 billion. Now 22, 23 financial year, our projection is now 29. When you look at our revenue performance now, by June, much as we have a shortfall of 1.1 trillion now, by June, because of the efforts we have made, we are still confident that we shall correct the 29 trillion. So what am I trying to say? Year to year, we have seen growth in revenue collection because of the deliberate investments we have made in the areas which stimulate tax base, and also the administrative reforms which URA has made under our domestic revenue mobilization strategy implementation. So it is not the case that you are seeing taxpayers declining. It could be true, but those who have remained have widened the tax base. For instance, I want you to analyze companies like our large taxpayers. You can look at a company like Kachira. It is now collecting between 150 to 200 billion. Look at our companies like Uganda breweries. They have continued to register growth in the tax collection. So you don't have to worry. What we need to worry about is can we limit the borrowing so that as we grow the revenue, can we be slow on the borrowing so that we are able to bring the debt numbers within the manageable levels? For me, that is what
it's good.
I think we should focus
it's good you have it's good you have picked Kakira and the others, but those who are paying more now to collecting revenue are from the service sector. But 70% of Ugandans, Honorable Minister, are into agriculture. When you look at what agriculture is contributing to GDP, there's a mismatch between the biggest part of your population contributing so little to your GDP.
In terms of, you see, agriculture is the backbone, and it is an area where majority of our people are. It is an area where majority of our people are employed. You don't only look at how much tax agriculture is contributing. You look at the multiplier effect in terms of food production, in terms of value addition, in terms of jobs created. I don't think in this analysis the tax to GDP contribution from agriculture is the best measure to really tell whether we are making progress or not.
Okay, let me come back here to Christine Biringyiro, because there has been good news that Uganda, and that, by the way, this was, I think, announced by the UNDP, that Uganda is moving to a lower income middle state or status. That should be something to celebrate about.
I wouldn't be very quick to celebrate about that for one major reason, because that implies that ideally you look like you seem to be graduating now. You're becoming older and so wiser, and so you have quite a number of challenges because, one, while you have been able to access the concessional financing, especially from maybe the IMFs who feel they need to support you as you're down there. So you'll not access much of that anymore, and you'll have to now go out on the market and acquire more, acquire debt at more non-concessional terms.
Because they think now you're better. Exactly.
So they'll go to help those who they feel do need this help. But that would not be the challenge. Our experience, though, with Uganda would be that we seem not to take caution when we are thrown out there. Our appetite to acquire debt seems not to even take consideration of some of these facts, that you need to go slow on non-concessional funds and move more to concessional financing. So I wouldn't be quick to celebrate One, for that reason.
Okay,
mainly.
okay, Honorable Minister, I would want you to respond there, and because I raised the issue of Uganda reaching the lower incomes, middle income, and I thought that is something to take us in a celebratory mood, but Christine is saying not yet. Your take, Honorable Minister.
Of course, every achievement deserves to be celebrated, and we are excited about achieving the lower middle income status. However, our biggest task is how to bring every Ugandan into the wealth economy. We still have the 39% of our Ugandans who are still in subsistence economy. So that's why you see us moving into PDM and other wealth funds, so that we bring everyone on board. We want to see, even when you talk about achieving middle income, what does it mean to my people in the villages in Rwanda? We want to see this in their homestead.
In fact, for them, they want a better human development index.
That is, we want to see this reflecting in their homesteads, and that is really where our biggest effort should go. Yes, that achievement is okay for planning purposes and for other things, but our focus as NRM government now is to see how we can bring every Ugandan into the money economy, and also support all our wealth creators to keep growing, because if we want to take our economy where we want it to be, we are looking at growing our economy tenfold in the next 15 years. So if we are to achieve this, there are a number of things we must really do. This middle income status of 1,093, we are looking at the future of having our per capita income at 7,000. So this is, it's good, but we still have to do a lot of things.
Honorable Minister, I want to thank you so much. Honorable Minister, I want to thank you. What's going to be your parting shot?
I want to also thank you for giving me an opportunity to speak to Ugandans. It has been a while, and I want to invite every Ugandan to support our effort in really building this economy to become a stronger economy and the most competitive economy in the region.
Thank you so much, Honorable Henry Musasizi, Minister of State for Finance in charge of general duties and Member of Parliament representing Rwanda County East. We're going to take a break and then we shall come back. I just want to know now, in this kind of quagmire, with this kind of challenges, what does the Uganda Debt Network do? We'll be right back.
933
KFM's Hot Seat. Hear the real story behind the story. Coming right at you. Only on 933 KFM.
Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guest tonight in the studio is Biringyiro, head of programs at the Uganda Debt Network. So, in your opinion, what are the main implications of Uganda's high debt levels on poverty-focused policies and programs? How does the debt situation affect the government's ability to allocate resources towards poverty reduction initiatives? Because I suppose that is the most important thing government is involved in.
Yeah, so if government has to continue paying this debt that is on an upward trajectory, we see that there is an opportunity cost, or there is opportunities foregone in terms of investing in the rest of the sectors, in the rest of the development programs of the government. You have quite a number, including or mainly the Human Capital Development Program. But if we have to invest to pay heavily to debt, we see the resource that is remaining to address these other areas, the health sector, education, social protection, which by the way gets less than 1%. We see that we are burdening the population. We are not concentrating on the population, and yet we know that for you to invest, the greatest investment any nation or state can ever make is in its human capital. Yeah.
Okay.
And so
let me focus on now Uganda Debt Network.
yes.
What role does UDN play in advocating for policies? Are there any, for example, specific initiatives or campaign the organization you work for is currently undertaking?
Yeah, we do quite a number of that. One, we engage with the policymakers. We do a lot of policy advocacy, and at the various levels, we engage with Parliament. For instance, we at this moment are engaging with Parliament on the ministerial policy statements. We did go to the Committee of Gender in Parliament. That was yesterday. But also we have organized engagements and meetings with other committees to be able to share some of our concerns with them. And we have
Are they willing to listen? Are they embracing your ideas? Because you can be making sense, but you end up making sense to yourselves as UDN.
Yeah, Patrick, I will tell you that in most cases, you will speak with the policymakers and they do share your concerns and they do believe that these are genuine concerns, even when sometimes they are not taken on. But sometimes we see some of the concerns or the input that we give them is actually taken on, including the Ministry of Finance. We engage a lot with the Ministry of Finance, both on one-on-one engagements, but also we have what is called the National Budget Month. And UDN is one of the partners, and this NBM, like we usually call it, is coordinated by the Ministry of Finance. So during the budget month, we always have these meetings with the ministry. We have made input to quite a number of frameworks, to quite a number of strategies developed by the ministry to be able to manage the debt, notably the Public Debt Management Framework, which was updated. And so we saw quite a number of our input taken in.
Okay.
But we also have campaigns. We work with the media. There's one.
But okay, because in the interest of time,
Yes,
I want to know, we have this to ensure the sustainable debt management. And I'm sure that's what you want to happen.
Yes.
What are your propositions to the government?
Okay. For that, one, we want to see, especially the Ministry of Finance, come and respect the strategies that they have made.
If they can only respect their own strategies.
Yes, the debt management strategies, make sure you keep within the thresholds.
You
that
think
you
they have it
set.
right on paper?
Yes, they do. We do have it right as a country. But the problem is implementing what we have put in place as policies. But number two, and most importantly, we need to see us, the leaders, come out strongly on corruption. We cannot be seen to be playing around or being soft on the corrupt, because that encourages more corruption. It encourages wastage of resources, so that even when we have other, intentions, engagements, trying to generate more revenues, if we do not deal with the corruption, where we lose about 10 trillion, like you said, according to the Auditor General, to the IGG, if we lose all that much and we are soft, we do not act against the corrupt, then there is nothing much we are doing. But we are also inciting the public and not being fair, because today I was looking at KCCA cleaners who have not been paid their 150,000 salaries for the past 5 months. But we have seen what is coming out in Parliament, about 2.6 billion spent in Parliament per day. And so these are the things we want to, engage with government on. We want to see us be more frugal, because the times ahead seem to be tough.
Okay. I want to thank you, Christine, for the time you have given us. You have definitely added value to this platform in the area of debt management and where we stand right now. What's going to be your concluding remark?
Yeah, my concluding remark, I always appeal, one, to government, the technocrats and the politicians. Please, please, please do not sell out this country. Let us get back on course and manage our debt. Let's be responsible, especially as we are borrowing, but also as we are utilizing this debt. And most importantly, I appeal to the citizens of this country. The debt touches you and it affects you directly. Your children and yourselves are paying 2.5 million as we speak in repayment of the debt. And so we need to see us be interested in this subject and hold government to account.
Thank you very much, Christine Biringyiro, Programs Manager at Uganda Debt Network. Earlier we had Simon Kaheru from Coca-Cola Beverages Africa, and also had the Minister of State for Finance in charge of general duties, the Honorable Henry Musasizi. But most of all, I want to thank you, the listener, for the privilege of your company. Good night and God bless Uganda.